Okay, so we now want to essentially create a really good kind of like drum and bass that we can really like reuse and actually like have across quite a few different songs, but it's different enough where we can essentially just manipulate it, and it's really quick essentially. So what I did is I used a lot of that kind of like array building sound design philosophy to essentially just create literally one serum patch. It's only one serum patch, but, and this is a big but, it's got the right types of effects. So as you can see, it's got all these effects on, which get automated a lot to manipulate the sound in a way that's both from the original source. So it's quite cohesive, but it's different enough that it actually works in a drop. So this is essentially like trying to build your own drum and bass array, kind of similar to the Doom instrument tutorial, which I did. But the actual like generation of it is different because there's not this need for there's not as big a need to like manipulate the sine wave into other sounds. It's more that we're starting from these kind of wavetables and then just distorting them and manipulating it in a way that kind of works in a drum and bass context. So let's actually look at how the automation of this operates live, basically. This is without any effects on. So we had a bit of sync coming in at the end. The sync basically just makes stuff really high pitched. Macro 1. Alright, so what's macro 1 doing? Let's look at where macro 1's going. So I set up a macro, basically just to edit the wavetable position on these two different wavetables. So one of them is your standard kind of like dubstep slash kind of like wobbly bass sound. It's one of the monster presets. It's in the spectral wavetables. I really recommend looking into how these sound and running them through distortion to get the harmonic qualities out of them, because they're very interesting. So we did a bit of that, and I also wanted a little bit of stereo width from the kind of like odd pass sound. So I mixed in a bit of that. I think they're actually equal in level because I thought it was decent to have in. And this is something quite important about Serum. A lot of people don't know you can do this. You can actually edit the unison width to really clean up the unison in a mix. So essentially what we're going to want to do here is I dropped that down to like 50, and then afterwards I did some like extra stereo enhancement slash management with multi-band plugins. But this will actually clean up the stereo quite a bit. If you have an oscillator with unison on and it's blended in, if you decrease the stereo width, it'll still have all those, kind of like not polyphonic, but what's the word for it? You basically have those oscillators playing in unison. So it's like multiple people playing instruments kind of sound, but it won't sit weirdly in your mix and phase cancel across the two ears as much. So that's how you can get a really solid kind of unison bass out of Serum using that. And that's a really nice starting point because we got that kind of wavetable manipulation as it goes through. It's really easy to draw in if you put it on a macro. So let's listen to that again. 1 second. So you notice there's some quite big wobbles here. And that'll be important in a second. So now let's add a bit of distortion to it. Let me just check if I do any automation on this distortion plugin. I don't think I did. No, I didn't do any automation specifically on this plugin. Right, so let's now listen to it with a bit more harmonic content added. Yeah, So that's really starting to get kind of meaty, if you know what I'm saying. But it's not quite there in terms of like a proper kind of like drum and bass slash neuro bass slash dubstep kind of sound. So I kind of employed, one second. Sorry, I had to sneeze. I kind of employed some of my hacks plugins. I have certain plugins which are just complete hacks and make life so much easier. And MorphEQ is one of them. I think there's a similar one on the Fab Filter pack, but MorphEQ is really fun because of the amount of presets it's got. So this is the first morph I added. It's this preset called Neuro Ripper, which I thought was really fun. And let's give that a listen. You'll notice I basically just copy and, for this one at least, I basically just copy and pasted the automation off the macro, which is something you can do, by the way, and I really recommend you copy and paste your automations. Don't draw them in each time. I literally just copy and pasted that and made it go with how the wave tables were getting changed. So let's give that a listen. So you notice there's a bit more movement there. It's kind of subtly noticeable, but it's not really, you know, properly there. It's more just there to kind of make it sound like not just like a constant buzz. It's not actually doing a lot, but I think it works well in combination with these other ones. So the second one I did, and you can see this is a lot more resonant. It's got a lot more resonant features. So we go on to the second instance of MorphEQ, and you'll notice I'm actually also automating the dry and wet on this one because I don't want it playing the whole time. If I have these notches, these really resonant notches playing the whole time, that's going to really mess up the mix. So I only cue them in on these bits here, and that's the bit where I did the kind of wobble in the automation. So I'll cue those in then. And we'll notice that the automation, I only copied across the bits for the little wobbles. So let's now listen to the bass after I've added this transformative EQ. So I think that's getting somewhere. I think that's pretty fun. You know, the sound changed very dynamically then. It changed from something that was very constant and kind of just buzzy to something which is like actually kind of sounds like it's wobbling around and almost like a glitch sound effect if you think about it. So and that's just coming off of one synth, one wavetable, which is why this plugin is so much fun. Morph. It really simplifies a lot of the difficult EQ aspects of aggressive electronic music. So let's have a look. So we got that MorphEQ instance free. Let's see how we're automating this. Okay. You'll notice I am now only doing this one on those little wobbles. I'm not doing it on the section before to create kind of like switch. So it doesn't go like this bit is specifically just going to go like, you know what I mean? Just a little wobble. So, and we do that very specifically in this case. So this was purely just to kind of get the wobble sound on that little ending of the thing, that little glitch. So now that we've done that, the sound is basically just in that small instance from the set of 3 plugins. The sound changed so drastically that it sounds almost like I've started up another synth patch, which obviously would use a lot more CPU. It sounds like I've booted up another instance of Serum and just put in like some glitch sound effects, or I've resampled something and slapped in. But in actuality, it's all just automation, and this comes in really fun. I believe, did I use it later on? There's another synth design I did, but this is just for that bit. It's a very similar process in the song for the later parts, but I'm going to just focus on this one bit because otherwise I'm going to have to render that bit out. But basically, I'm going to put a few plugins on now, which are more mix plugins than actual like transformative plugins. And there is one plugin left which I want to show you guys, which is very, very interesting. And I think it really mixes it up quite a bit. So what are we going to do after all those EQs? I really like a little bit of convolution. Just like literally dry wet 10%, just to kind of give it a little bit of like air, not like air, but weirdness to it, a bit of naturality to it, if that makes any sense. So these early reflection from this free plugin, these early reflection convolutions are very fun. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do it's kind of like parallel compression, but it's just on the same chain, so it's not any routing going on here. But I basically use this extreme compression plugin, and I've put the mix down pretty low just to try and get some of that, consistency back into it. After that, we did a bit of a channel strip with a bit of drive, because this adds a very nice kind of subtle harmonic drive to it, which just kind of like gives it a bit more. It basically balances it up to the high end a bit more and kind of thickens it up. And then we go in with acoustics, and it doesn't appear I'm doing anything. Do I automate this? No, this is doing absolutely nothing. Okay, so we're just gonna not worry about that. And then FabFilter Pro Q3. Literally, okay, we're just gonna grab some of the high end, some of that really big fizz off. I should probably mention that I believe if I've got it on the bus, it will make sense. Okay, no, I don't. This is a side chain, by the way. That's not me using Soothe. I believe I also took out this kind of range down here. Let me check on the actual render of it. No, it's not there. I believe I also took out this kind of sub bass range down here because I already have a sub bass, which is a serum preset, which I've talked about previously in this video. This serum with these overtones drawn in. So I would then also take out the kind of like the root frequency of this bass and replace that with something a bit more cleaner, because we've got some unison going on here, so we're going to get phase cancellation. We don't want that down in the low end. Anyway, so yeah, that is this kind of weird neuro-based thing, and I'll do some additional mix stuff to it. Let me just disable this section, and in the end, after it's fully mixed in, it will sound like this. Never mind, this is gonna lag. Yeah, that's a little funny sampler pin, don't mind that. Sorry, I've got quite high latency on this session, so it just kind of like plays stuff after I paused it. Right. So I did mention, and I forgot to kind of feature it, but there's a secret little plugin here going on to make that bit of bass sound quite cool. And that's this one. Let's solo that out again. This is a very fun plugin, as you can probably already see by the appearance of it. I can't remember if it's free or not. I don't remember it being free. It's very cheap. The Freak Show audio stuff is very good value. But basically, this does the kind of like time manipulation kind of thing. Obviously, you're going to see that I do quite a lot with it. But the actual trick here isn't to use it like a normal automation where you draw on we draw in the EQ curves, it's to essentially set up this thing called latch, where basically the way this plugin works is you grab it and you kind of just move it around for sound design. So you need to have a way to basically record those manual automations, and you can do that by either recording off the channel, or you can do it by just like using a latch, which basically just means like record all the automation I'm doing when I edit this thing in real time. So that's kind of how I got all these really bizarre EQ automation curves, because it's literally just me dragging the thing around. And you'll notice they're very different between the different automations. Maybe not as much in that one. So these are actual like manual hand automations, and it's kind of so complicated to actually like automate in that I really just recommend like doing latch for a lot of different things which are very sound design focused. When I do sound design, I use a lot of latch automation because it's very similar to like having hardware in front of you and just tweaking knobs and stuff. It's kind of like the digital version of that, and I'd actually recommend, this is something I haven't done yet, is maybe getting a MIDI kind of like mix board with a bunch of knobs on, and assigning some macros on knobs to, you know, things that are latch automated, and you could even like tweak stuff like it's a bit of hardware if your latency is quite low as well, which could be very fun. That's something I'm yet to experiment with, but I've looked into it, and I think that could be quite enjoyable. Anyway, so let's listen to that with the secret plugin on that does really cool sound design. So you notice how that creates some absolutely nuts sounds towards the end, and that's basically how I did the second half of that. I didn't want it to be completely different, but I kind of just wanted it to transition into the next section, which we will now talk about. Yeah, that's really fun. Go give this a listen.